As I said before, in case you missed it, my name is Josh Thomas. I'm one of the pastors here. I get the privilege of working alongside Jared Keeley, our Next Gen pastor, and Ruth Warwick, our care pastor, who unfortunately has gone on a great holiday and come back a bit sick. So just keep her in your prayers. She's hopefully will be back on deck this week. And her husband was up here playing bass before, and he seemed fine. So anyway, that's good. Go on, Simon. Yeah, it's great to get to be here, to be with you all today as we spend our time together. Hopefully it's a start to your week which sets you off on the right track, on the right foot, so to speak. And hopefully as we sang together, as we get a time to look at a part of the Bible where we get to see Jesus' interaction with the crowd, and then our time afterwards is also part of our service where we get to support and encourage one another. I hope that this time has been well spent as you begin your week together. Let me pray, and then we're going to have a look at the second part of a better question. Father God, thank you so much for this morning. I pray that whatever it is that we need to hear and we need to pay attention to, that we do. I pray that it will stick out to us and that we will be able to apply anything that is relevant so that we can see you more active in our lives. Be with us in your name and for your glory. Amen. We are currently in a series called A Better Question. Questions, and we looked at this last week, are all around us, internally, externally, and questions shape the direction of our lives. When we ask questions, it makes us think about things that could be, or it makes us assess where we currently are, and it makes us move towards action. Good questions lead to good results, and bad questions sometimes can even change how we experience this life. Last week we started off looking at this question: what should I do about me? And it's a really good question to ask. It'll get you in shape, out of debt, and on with your life. That's a great question if you want self-improvement. But the question that I have is that the best question that we could be asking? Because as you discover today, hopefully, we're going to discover and look at this idea that when we devote ourselves to something that is bigger than ourselves, we have more than just ourselves to show at the end of our life. And if that sounds confusing, we're going to unpack it. And you might even be thinking, well, where does an idea like that come from? It comes straight from Jesus. And we're going to look at that together today. But first, I want to tell you a little story about some runners that I read in a book a while ago. I was reading this book, and this guy had this great story in there where he talked about these runners he saw. So he's an author, and he writes books about how to, improve your life and whatnot. And he was talking about one time when he had to get up really early on a speaking engagement, and he went down to the foyer of his hotel, and he looked and he saw this group of runners. And he observed, wow, they look amazing. Look at them. They all look lean, ready for life. It's like the sun's not even up. They haven't even had coffee yet, but there's smiles on their faces. And this guy's looking at this group of runners going, I want that. I want that. Imagine if I had that, waking up in the morning, ready for life. Imagine me looking like that, being able to run like they do. But then he had a thought. They probably do things a little differently than I do. And he thought to himself, he said, yeah, when I was awake last night watching TV at 10 p.m. eating ice cream, they were probably asleep having eaten celery and read some book. And he thought to himself, I'm up early this morning, but every other morning when I'm asleep, they're probably waking up, training, eating well, and practicing. And he realized to himself, I want the result of a runner, but I don't want the lifestyle of a runner. Can't I just get to there without having to do the hard work? And his point was basically, if you want to be a runner, you have to adopt the lifestyle. You can't live like a couch potato and then wake up one morning ready to go. It does not work that way. When you put in the work, you get the results. And when you don't, you watch someone else with the results that you would like. Sometimes when I'm driving up on Sunday mornings, because Sunday morning, if you've ever driven up Welshpool Road, there's all those fit people on the side of the road, bike riding, hammering it out. And I look at them sometimes, I'm like, that looks so cool. I would never do it, but that looks so cool. And good for them, good for them. I'm just going to keep driving. But if you want that sort of result, you've got to live that way. So today I just wanted to put this out to you. You have a choice this morning. You have a choice every week, but especially this morning. You can be like the author in that story, and you can look at people who apply things to their lives and go, I wish that was me. Or you can actually be like the runners in that story and choose to put it into action. So this morning, as we look at this better question, As we look at this teaching that comes from the life of Jesus, I want to encourage you, put what you can into action and you'll see the results. If you sit on the couch and just listen but don't put it into action, it won't do anything. So I want to encourage you, put it into action. Try and live it. So last week I asked you to consider the better question. The better question is, what breaks your heart? So if you were here last week, hopefully you heard me challenge you. What I wanted you to do was to ask the question and then just listen to the response. I didn't even say go and act on the question. I said just ask the question and listen internally to what happens. If you weren't here last week, that is the better question. What breaks your heart? What do I do about me? Ends up putting the attention on you, which we know doesn't end well generally. But when you ask this question, what breaks your heart? It drives people to do more and be part of something bigger than themselves. So if you haven't asked that question before, just quickly internally right now, ask that question, what breaks your heart? And just listen to what the voice says. I didn't ask you to act on it yet. I just wanted you to pay attention. And here's a couple of ways this could have played out. Some of you would have asked that question and immediately gone, I haven't asked it that way before, but I know exactly what it is and I apply it right now. Some of you would have been like, I already know what breaks my heart and I volunteer there every week. I already know what breaks my heart and I make sure I fund it so that it works. I already know what breaks my heart and I live differently to be part of the solution to the problem. Some of you asked that question and you went, bang, I already know. That's awesome. And that is so powerful. And hopefully you found a more full life living in that reality of being part of the solution of what breaks your heart. Some of you asked the question and you thought to yourselves, yeah, I remember long ago there was something that did break my heart, but then I got in that relationship and then we got married and then we had kids and then I had to work hard and then I had grandkids and it's buried deep down there. And you think to yourself, I remembered being young and involved and I knew what broke my heart back then, but if I look at my life now, to be honest, it's there, it's just buried. Well, this series is an opportunity to get the shovel out, to go back into your life and to start to dig away and work at how to bring that back up and put it into practice. What breaks your heart and how can that impact your life today? And then some of you asked that question and you met the sound of deafening silence. You went, what does break my heart? And it got louder and louder and louder. You thought to yourself, I don't know. And that's okay if you don't know. And in fact, some of you, if you're like me, you'd start to a bit overcompensate. Like, I should know, I should have something. It sounds like the right thing to do. And you start to think, oh, I gave money to that thing once, I think. What was that cause again? And you start to try to put something into place. Don't pressure it. Don't force it. Something in your life matters to you so much that you want to be a part of changing it. You just need to discover what that is and then start to live it out. So if you didn't hear anything, that's okay. I do believe that as we ask the question, we find that life is so much better if we do it that way. What have I done here? Oh, they're all stuck together. There we go. I'm like jumping forward in my sermon. All right. So asking the question helps prompt us to what we need to do. And Jesus actually tells us that when we act on this question, when we ask the question, what breaks your heart, when we act on it and we actually answer it, we actually get to a better result. Jesus informs us that when we ask that other question, the one that's a good question but not the best question, what should I do about me? Jesus says you can ask it, you can act on it, but at the end of your life, all that you're going to end up with is a wealthier, fitter, more educated corpse with a really cool property portfolio. Like, you can make it all about you, and when you get to the end of the life, you'll have you, and that's it. But Jesus encourages us. If you act on the better question of what breaks your heart, you will end up living life to the fullest and you will get to the end of your life with more than just yourself to show for it. Now, this appears like a little bit of a paradox, and Jesus gives us some statements in his teaching that do come out like paradoxes. Here's some things that Jesus promises us that when we read them, we go, that doesn't really make sense. But then when you start to apply it to your life, you realize, I sort of get that. One of the things Jesus talks about is this idea that to fill your life up, the way that that's done is through emptying your life. To which we go, okay, but wouldn't filling it up make it full? And Jesus is like, no. You try to make your life full, you'll end up not having the fullness. You'll actually end up in another space. So emptying your life, giving your life away, choosing to put others first. And that's what we're going to look at today. That will give you a full life. A couple of other things Jesus says. He says gaining is achieved through giving, which is very contrary to what we believe, right? Because you go to work hard, put money into your super, invest well, make sure, like, when you invest and the property prices go with you, you go, I'm a genius. And when they don't, you go, the system's wrong. Anyway, and you think to yourself, no, gaining is achieved through getting more. And Jesus is like, no. If you want to gain in this life in a way that truly matters, it's actually achieved through giving. One more, he says, is winning is achieved through losing, to which you say, Jesus, have you watched the Olympics? No one's getting a gold medal for coming in last, right? Winning is achieved through winning. And Jesus says, well, actually, I managed to defeat death and win all of life. And the way I did that was through losing my life on a cross. So following Jesus is actually characterized not by self-improvement, though your life does get better, but by self-denial, which sounds wrong. But when we live it out and when we apply it to our lives, it goes so well for us. So for us to follow Jesus, then we just need to know. Following Jesus makes your life better and makes you better at life, but it will cost us something. It will always cost us something. So where does this idea come from? It comes from Mark chapter 8, and here's where the story is. So Jesus is walking around, and he looks over his shoulder one day, and he realizes there is a big crowd following me. And Jesus is looking at this crowd and going, of course they're following me. I heal people, feed people, and educate people. The crowd are following, but they're following for mixed motives. The crowd are following him because they want free healthcare, free food programs, and a good education. So they're going, if I get close to Jesus, then life will go well for me because my mate Denny was with him last week and he couldn't walk and now he can walk. So if I get close to Jesus, Jesus will fix me. So Jesus is walking along one day. He looks over his shoulder and he sees the crowd. And he looks at them and realizes this is a group who have mixed motives. And he just wants to be upfront with them to make them realize that following him is not about those things. He did those things to show that he really was who he said he was. He healed, he fed, he educated, he did all these great things. He calmed nature down. He did all of that to show he has the authority to do so. But he wanted to make sure that they were very clear. If they were going to keep following him, they needed to know what it was they were signing up for. He didn't want to be like one of those subscriptions you sign up for a free trial and then they don't tell you that they're going to quickly bill you and put all that money on. You know, sneaky companies that do that. Jesus wanted to make sure there's no bait and switch. You know what this is all about. So the author of the Gospel of Mark, a 2,000-year-old document, tells us about the life of Jesus, gives us this interaction. Now, Mark was written by a guy called John Mark, who wasn't an eyewitness to Jesus, but he got all of his information from Peter, who was an eyewitness of Jesus' life. So Mark 8:34 to 37. So Jesus calls the crowd that is following him along, and he says, come in close, come in close, come in close. So the crowd's there, the disciples are there, and he just wants to have a moment to do some teaching. He says this to them: whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. Which is kind of a big deal. I mean, Jesus is asking those there, if you really want to follow me, if you want to come be part of what I'm doing, it's going to cost you something. You're going to have to say no to you, and you're going to have to take up your cross and follow me. And you need to understand, for us, we're reading this 2,000 years after it happened. We hear that word, the cross, and we are very removed from that reality. So we're like, oh, take up your cross. That's right, you've got to do hard things sometimes. For the crowd listening, when Jesus says, you've got to take up your cross and follow me, they're thinking, we know what that looks like. We know what that smells like. We know what that sounds like. They've seen people crucified. They've seen people on the sides of the roads dying in public shame. They know exactly what that looks, smells, sounds like, and that's a big deal. That's a big ask. We look at that and we go, oh, that's mean, but we don't have that sort of system they did back then. So for him to say that to his crowd, they're going, okay, this is not a small game. There's something big going on here. Jesus goes on, he says, whoever wants to save their life, this is one of those paradoxes we were talking about before, whoever wants to save their life is actually going to lose it. And whoever loses their life for me, for Jesus, and for the gospel, they're the ones that are going to save it. They're the ones that are going to save it. So the crowd look at Jesus saying, you're saying to us that it's going to cost us something. We have to say no to ourselves. We're going to have to pick up our cross. And if we want to follow you, we're going to have to actually give our lives away? And Jesus is like, yeah. And we think to ourselves now, as a modern reader looking at that, you say, well, we try to do everything we can to not lose our life, don't we? Think about it. You work hard, pay your taxes, eat well, exercise. Why? So that you can live long and prosper. We do so much in our world to try and live for longer. Make sure you're on the right health insurance. So if something goes wrong, you get to the best doctor the quickest that you can. When things don't go well, we want to make sure that we have money so we can have a nice, comfortable enduring of whatever it is that period of time looks like. So when we live in our day and age, we think to ourselves, we try to live long and prosper. So Jesus is saying, well, actually, if you try to save your life, if you try and hold on to your life, ultimately, you're going to lose your life. And the crowd listening to this went, okay, free healthcare, free education, free food sounded good, but this is something different. This is something more than just that. So Jesus expands the idea. He says this, what good is it to gain the whole world and lose your soul? Or what can anyone even give in exchange for their soul? Jesus brings it in and says, what's the point of living this life if you gain everything this life has to offer, but you lose the one part of you that endures forever? So if you want to follow me, you've got to say no to yourself, pick up your cross, choose to not save your life and only look out for yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you only look after yourself and only look out for yourself, the only thing you'll have to show at the end is you. And Jesus doesn't want you to get lost. So, translated, Jesus does not want you to lose your soul. And to make sure that that doesn't happen, to make sure that you don't lose yourself, he wants to help give you some tools to be able to make this life more than just all about you. So if you want to save your soul, you need to make some adjustments. You need to take the focus off of you and put it onto something bigger. And if we think about it for a second, people who live for themselves aren't the best people to be around. Let's have a look at a couple of examples together. Because Jesus here, he's trying to point out, you live for you, all you get is you. But if you live for other people, then there's more to show for your life than just your life. And you think about it, it's so true in so many areas of our life. Have a think about the people that you admire, the people that you look up to in this world. They are people who are others focused, aren't they? The people that you admire, they're the ones that look past themselves to the people who are around them, who reach out and care for the people around them. Think about how you train your kids or how you train your grandkids or your nieces or your nephews. When you look at a kid, they come into this world and it's me, 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 right? That's it. Me, me, me. Everything's about me. And we try to show them one step at a time, one teaching moment at a time. There's more around you than just you. And hopefully they get it. Some do, some don't, but we keep trying to teach them. Or think about the leaders in our world. Think about the CEOs and the politicians and the managers in our world. The people who are out for just themselves. What do when things get hard? They cut and run. And that's where we lose so much faith and trust in so many of our systems that are set up, because the CEO or the manager or the politician, they're meant to be the one that when things go wrong, they stand there and they are present to protect the people they are called to serve. But when they cut and run because it doesn't help their cause go further, it breaks trust. We don't like those people. We like the ones that stand up and say, I may not have caused the mess, but I'm here to be responsible for the mess that was caused. Or think about your work, about how good it feels when you work at something that contributes to something that's bigger than you. I have a couple of friends that work in the health department that are nurses. And I was talking to one of them the other day, and she was saying it's so good to go to a workplace where she gets to give back. And she's just I don't even know what her role is there, but in a nursing job, all she's doing is going on and doing her job, right? It's not like she's going in there and going, I'm going to be better than everyone and give more. She just gets to do her job. And she was just reflecting, going, and part of my role is I get to help people. And she said that was so fulfilling. And we find so much peace when we get to have a role that gives back. And if we don't find that in the workplace, because some of us don't work in those sort of places that contribute in that way, we volunteer and we give our time in other ways, or we give generously to things that go and that are bigger than just us. Because at the end of the day, we don't want people who are self-interested. They don't really make friends. And the winner, when it comes to me, the winner of that race is always going to be a person's appetite. And you may not have thought about it in this way before. Jesus is very aware of this. One of his most famous teachings is where he talks about money, and he's basically saying to people, your love for money will be the death of you. So don't chase after money. Don't go after that appetite. Jesus, in multiple times through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I encourage you, if you can read or listen to the Bible, not just read, I find listening helpful as well. Go look at what Jesus talks about. And he's constantly pointing away from them and to other people. Because when it's all about us, the winner is our appetites. And when you think about it, when an appetite takes over someone's life, and you've experienced this in different ways around, when people take a me-centered approach and their appetites become the focus of their world, it's painful to watch. Suddenly the marriage that was, hard becomes unviable because one of the parties says, I just don't want it to work anymore. It doesn't benefit me anymore. Or suddenly parenting gets too difficult and a parent walks out because they go, I signed up for parenting because they were cute and adorable, but they always want something and I'm more about myself, and they walk away from that responsibility. Or maybe they fall into an addiction like alcohol or drugs or online shopping or something which pulls them away from their connection to the people around them. And when that appetite takes a hold and it becomes about me, all these things about being others focused and healthy, good stuff for us, it just gets removed. And the winner of me is that appetite takes a hold of that person's life. And the losers in that situation is always the people around them. The spouse, the family members, the friends, the co-workers. When people put themselves first, the appetite will win and the people around them will always lose. So Jesus is saying to them and to us, when you make it all about you, all you get is you. But when you make it about others, then you tap into the heart of God. Then when you make it about others, you must choose to say no to you so you can say yes to something bigger. Or the way that Jesus put it, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, say no to yourself, pick up your cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life, you're going to lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and the gospel will save it. And if you just take a little look, read, listen in the Gospel of Mark, you find the example of Jesus teaching it's about others, again and again. Mark 9:33, he says, the greatest of all, if you want to be the greatest of all, you've got to be the servant of everyone. So if you're vying for positional power in this world and you follow Jesus, Jesus says that positional power is not for you to enjoy, it's for you to leverage for the good of the people you get to serve. Mark chapter 10, he talks about a rich young ruler comes to Jesus and says, I follow God in everything. What must I do? And Jesus says, your money's a problem. And he walks away and goes, that's a problem. Because Jesus is like, your money's not for you. It's not to be consumed by you. It's actually something you can leverage for the good of the yous around you. Mark 10:42, Jesus says, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life for ransom, as a ransom for many. So Jesus is saying, if you want the ultimate example of others first focus, Jesus, the Son of God, who came to earth, did not come here so that people could go, you are amazing, you are amazing, you are amazing. It's the response that happens, but he came to earth so that he could serve the earth. And the end result of him serving us was dying on a cross and coming back to life. And in Mark chapter 12, Jesus summarizes the two greatest commandments. What are they? Love the God with all your heart, mind, strength, and soul. Love others. And Jesus, from then on, was the biggest thing is about how you love one another. You go read some of the letters that are written later in the New Testament. You look at the book of James. It's about how you love one another. So throughout Mark, Jesus consistently teaches that true life is found when we say no to us, when we serve others, and when we surrender to God's will. The message is very clear. You've got to say no to the selfish parts of you and say yes to the yous around you. So, if you don't follow Jesus this morning, I just want to let you off the hook right now. You don't have to follow any of this. That's good news for you, because if you want to make life all about you and you don't follow Jesus, the good news is you can keep making your life all about you. Now, I don't think that will end well, and I don't think Jesus thinks it will end well, but you're under no obligation to have to follow the words of Jesus. I believe they're true words to live by, and I believe they make our life better. But if you don't follow him, you are not bound to that. And the good news for those of us that do follow Jesus is we get to follow these sayings and these teachings of Jesus. Which means, and if you don't follow Jesus, you might be like, phew, dodged a bullet. If you do follow Jesus, you might be like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I had to do that. If you follow Jesus, you cannot be all about you. Jesus gives us no wriggle room. That job you have, it is an opportunity to be light in a place that needs the light of Jesus. Those children that you have are an opportunity to grow in your understanding of God and to be a great source of light in the places that you get to be because of where your children are. Those friends that you have, the places you are not there so that they are all cumulatively coming back to you. If you follow Jesus, that's gone. That position you have at work probably feels cool to have that title, but that title comes with responsibility. And Jesus says that title is to be used to serve the people you are in charge of. Which means if you follow Jesus, you can't cut and run and go, it's all about me. You must actually choose to put the you beside you first. We have to say no to ourselves, pick up our cross, and actually follow him. And if you are someone who's exploring whether following Jesus is for you, this should be good news. Jesus wants our world to be filled with people that put other people first. It's a submission competition. It's about putting people first, lifting one another up. Because when I look after you and you look after me, we get to bring a little bit of heaven into this broken world while we wait for Jesus to come back. So, how do you make sure that you don't make it all about you? You ask this question. This will find the thing that you should commit your life to. You got to ask this question. You got to ask the question, what breaks your heart? You got to ask it sincerely. In a way that goes, God, I want to actually have my life be more than just me. So I need to know, God, what does break my heart? What in the world agitates me so much that if I could change it with a single press of a button, I would jump up and slam it no matter the cost? What is that one thing that breaks your heart so much? That is something that God wants you to partner with him in fixing in this world. He wants you to commit your life to something like that. You got to ask it and answer it honestly. If you don't know what it is yet, there's a prayer point for you. If you don't know what it is yet, there's a conversation starter. Hey group of friends, or hey co-workers, or hey family. What do you guys? What breaks your guys' heart? What agitates you about our world or something? I'm trying to find my thing. Can you tell me what your thing is? Answer it honestly. And then finally, the biggest part. Remember, we don't want to be couch potatoes looking at healthy runners. We want to be the people out there running, right? You've actually got to put it into practice. If you know what breaks your heart and you know what you should be doing and you do nothing about it, Jesus says, you did not take up your cross. You sat on the sidelines and watched other people do the good work that I had planned for you. And I don't want that to be my story, and I definitely don't want that to be your story. So what breaks your heart? What are you going to commit your life to that's more than just you? So that at the end of your life, you have more than just yourself to show. When we give ourselves up to something like that, our lives take on a new meaning because we become a means to an end that is not just about us. And that is worth following Jesus for. You can go and make it about you. And we hear the stories of the people that make it about themselves. Or you can participate and join God in what he wants for you. What breaks your heart? Ask it, answer it, act on it. And we're going to unpack how we act on it more next week when we conclude our series, A Better Question. Let me pray for you, and then we're going to go have some tea and coffee. Father God, thank you so much that we get to live this life in a way that is not just about ourselves. It's fun for a while, and living for ourselves can work for a season, but at the end of the day, the only winner is our appetites, and the losers are the people who are around us. Don't let that be our story. Don't let that be our story. So God, may we this week ask the question, what breaks my heart? May we answer it, and may we look to find ways to act on it so that we can follow you, say no to ourselves, take up our cross, and end up saving our lives by giving it away. Give us the boldness to put it into action and the wisdom to make the right choice. In your name and for your glory. Amen.